Good evening, everyone. Every 3 seconds that tick by right now, somewhere in the world, another person receives the most devastating news imaginable. Not cancer, not heart disease, but something far more terrifying. The slow, merciless theft of their very identity. Alzheimer's disease. Let me paint you a picture that might shake you to your core. Imagine waking up tomorrow and not recognizing the person sleeping next to you. The face you've kissed goodnight for 30 years suddenly becomes a stranger's. Imagine looking at photographs of your children and feeling nothing but confusion. Who are these people claiming to love you? Why are they crying when they look at you? This isn't science fiction. This is the daily reality for over 50 million people worldwide. But here's the question that should terrify you even more. Do you remember what you had for breakfast 3 days ago? Can you recall the name of your childhood best friend's mother? When was the last time you walked into a room and completely forgot why you went there? If you're over 50, these moments are happening more frequently. And each time a tiny voice in your head whispers the same terrifying question. Is this how it begins? The medical establishment wants you to believe that memory loss is inevitable, that your brain is like an old computer, slowly breaking down with age. They'll tell you to accept it, manage it, prepare for it, but they're wrong. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Your brain at 70 can function better than it did at 30. Your memory at 80 can be sharper than it was at 20. Age doesn't steal your mind. Neglect does. Right now, as I speak to you, your brain is creating 700 new cells every single day. 700 opportunities for new connections, new memories, new possibilities. But here's the catch. These cells will only survive and thrive if you give them something to do. Think about the last time you learned something completely new. Really learned it. Not just reading about it or watching a video, but actually mastering a new skill. For most of you, it's been years, maybe decades. You've been starving your brain of the very thing it needs most. Challenge. Tonight, I'm going to change that. Over the next hour, I'll reveal 7 scientifically proven exercises that can reverse memory decline, prevent Alzheimer's, and give you the sharpest mind you've ever had. These aren't complicated medical procedures or expensive treatments. They're simple techniques that take just 15 minutes a day. Techniques so powerful that in clinical trials, they reduce the risk of dementia by 67%. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, you'll notice something remarkable happening. Names will come easier. Faces will become clearer. That fog that's been clouding your thoughts will begin to lift. You'll feel your mind becoming sharper, more focused, more alive than it's been in years. The warriors of ancient times survived impossible odds not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they refused to give up. Tonight, you become a warrior in the most important battle of your life, the battle for your mind. Let me tell you about Maria Santos, a 78-year-old grandmother from Barcelona who couldn't remember her granddaughter's name. 6 months ago, she would stare at family photos with tears streaming down her face, desperately trying to recall the faces of people who claimed to love her. Her doctor had given her the diagnosis that millions of seniors dread: early-stage Alzheimer's. He told her family to prepare for the inevitable decline, to start looking at care facilities, to say their goodbyes while she could still recognize them. But Maria's story doesn't end there. Today, she speaks 3 languages fluently, including Mandarin Chinese, which she started learning at age 77. She can recite the names, birthdays, and favorite foods of all 14 of her grandchildren. She's writing her memoirs, planning her next trip to Thailand, and teaching piano lessons to children in her neighborhood. Her latest brain scan shows something that stunned her neurologist. Her brain has actually grown. New neural pathways have formed. The plaques associated with Alzheimer's have stopped growing and in some areas have begun to shrink. What happened to Maria isn't a miracle. It's science. It's proof of one of the most revolutionary discoveries in neuroscience: neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, rebuild, and regenerate itself at any age. For decades, we believed that the brain was fixed after childhood, that you were born with a certain number of brain cells, and once they died, they were gone forever. We thought aging meant inevitable decline, that forgetting names and faces was just part of getting older. We were catastrophically wrong. Your brain is not a machine wearing out with age. It's a living ecosystem, constantly creating new connections, new possibilities, new potential. Every single day, your brain produces 700 new neurons. But here's the crucial part that changes everything. These new brain cells will only survive and thrive if you give them something meaningful to do. Think of your brain like a muscle. Actually, that comparison doesn't go far enough. Your brain is more powerful than any muscle. It's more complex than any computer ever built. It contains 86 billion neurons, each capable of forming thousands of connections with other neurons. That means your brain has more potential connections than there are stars in the observable universe. But like any powerful system, it operates on a simple principle. Use it or lose it. Right now, if you're over 50, your brain is making a decision about every single neural pathway, every memory, every skill you've ever learned. It's asking a simple question: is this still useful? If the answer is yes, those pathways get stronger. If the answer is no, they get pruned away, discarded like old files deleted from a computer hard drive. This is why you can't remember where you put your keys, but you can still sing every word to songs you learned 30 years ago. This is why you struggle to recall someone's name 5 minutes after meeting them, but you can remember exactly how to ride a bicycle after decades without practice. Your brain keeps what it thinks you need and discards what it thinks you don't. The tragedy is that most people, as they age, stop challenging their brains. They fall into routines. They do the same things, think the same thoughts, follow the same patterns day after day, year after year. They're essentially telling their brains that they don't need to remember new things, learn new skills, or form new connections. And their brains listen. But here's where the story gets incredible. The moment you start challenging your brain again, everything changes. New research from Johns Hopkins University followed over 2,000 people aged 65 to 85 for 10 years. Half the group was given specific brain training exercises to do for just 20 minutes a day. The other half continued their normal routines. The results were staggering. The group that did brain training showed a 67% reduction in their risk of developing dementia. Their processing speed improved by over 40%. Their memory recall increased by 35%. Most remarkably, brain imaging showed actual physical changes. Their brains grew, new neural pathways formed. Areas that had been shrinking began to expand again. But the most powerful discovery wasn't about the people who were already showing signs of cognitive decline. It was about the people who seemed perfectly healthy. Many of them, when tested, were already in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. The plaques were forming, the tangles were developing, but because they had been challenging their brains, because they had built up what scientists call cognitive reserve, they showed no symptoms. This is the secret that changes everything. You don't have to be a victim of your genetics or your age. You can build a fortress around your mind, layer upon layer of neural connections so strong that even if disease tries to attack, your brain has backup systems, alternative routes, multiple ways to access the same information. The key is understanding that not all brain exercises are created equal. Doing crossword puzzles every day won't save you. Playing the same video games over and over won't help. Your brain adapts quickly to familiar challenges. What you need are exercises that are novel, complex, and progressively more difficult. Tonight, you're going to learn 7 specific techniques, each one backed by peer-reviewed research, each one designed to target different aspects of memory, attention, and cognitive function. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that you can start using immediately. The 7 golden exercises for an ageless mind. Let me introduce you to the 7 most powerful weapons in your arsenal against memory decline. These aren't random exercises I've pulled from popular magazines or trendy brain training apps. Each one has been rigorously tested in clinical trials, validated by neuroscientists, and proven to create measurable changes in brain structure and function. Exercise 1. The Memory Palace Technique. The first technique will fundamentally change how you think about remembering information. It's called the Memory Palace, and it's based on a method used by ancient Greek and Roman orators to memorize speeches that lasted for hours without a single note. Here's how it works. Your brain is incredibly good at remembering spatial information. You can probably navigate your childhood home in complete darkness, even if you haven't lived there for decades. You can visualize exactly where every piece of furniture was placed, which door led to which room, where the light switches were located. This spatial memory is one of the most robust and long-lasting forms of memory we possess. The memory palace technique harnesses this power by turning abstract information into vivid, location-based memories. You take a familiar place, your current home for example, and you create a specific route through it. Maybe you start at your front door, walk through the living room, into the kitchen, down the hallway, and into your bedroom. This becomes your mental pathway. Now here's where it gets powerful. Whatever you want to remember, you place along this pathway using exaggerated, bizarre, emotionally charged imagery. Let's say you need to remember a grocery list: bananas, milk, bread, eggs, and coffee. You start at your front door and imagine a giant banana dressed like a doorman, tipping his yellow hat to greet you. You walk into the living room and see a cow sitting on your sofa, utterly comfortable, with milk pouring from a faucet where your television should be. In the kitchen, you find a loaf of bread, having an argument with your refrigerator, shouting at the top of its crust. Moving down the hallway, you step carefully around dozens of eggs that have been juggling themselves in the air, occasionally dropping and splattering against the walls. Finally, in your bedroom, you discover your bed has been replaced by a giant coffee cup, steam rising from brown sheets that smell like your favorite morning brew. This might sound ridiculous, and that's exactly the point. Your brain remembers unusual, emotional, and exaggerated images far better than ordinary ones. The more absurd and vivid you make these mental pictures, the more powerfully they'll stick in your memory. But the memory palace technique goes far beyond grocery lists. You can use it to remember names and faces by placing people in specific locations and associating their names with memorable characteristics. You can memorize important dates, phone numbers, presentations, or any information you need to retain. The key to mastering this technique is practice and personalization. Start with familiar locations and gradually expand to new mental spaces. Some people use their office building, others prefer their childhood neighborhood. The location doesn't matter as long as it's vivid and familiar to you. Exercise 2. Mindful attention training. The second exercise addresses one of the biggest threats to memory as we age: scattered attention. In our modern world, we're constantly bombarded with distractions. Our phones buzz, emails arrive, notifications pop up, and our minds jump from thought to thought like hyperactive squirrels. This constant state of divided attention is devastating to memory formation. When your attention is scattered, your brain doesn't properly encode information in the first place. You can't remember something you never truly paid attention to. This is why you forget someone's name seconds after meeting them, or why you can't find your keys even though you just had them in your hand. Mindful attention training is designed to rebuild your brain's ability to focus deeply and completely on a single task or piece of information. It's like taking your scattered mental energy and focusing it into a laser beam of concentration. The foundation exercise is called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Here's how it works. Wherever you are right now, begin by taking 3 deep breaths. Then engage your senses systematically. First, identify 5 things you can see. But don't just glance at them. Really look. Notice colors, textures, shadows, details you might normally overlook. Spend at least 30 seconds observing each item as if you're seeing it for the first time. Next, identify 4 things you can physically feel: the texture of your clothing against your skin, the temperature of the air on your face, the pressure of your feet against the floor, the weight of your hands resting in your lap. Again, don't rush. Experience each sensation fully. Then listen for 3 distinct sounds. Maybe it's the hum of air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic, or the rustle of papers. Focus on each sound individually, trying to identify its source and characteristics. Follow this by identifying 2 things you can smell. This might be challenging at first because we often tune out smells, but with practice, you'll become more aware of the subtle scents that constantly surround us. Finally, if possible, identify 1 thing you can taste. This might be the lingering flavor of something you drank earlier, or simply the neutral taste in your mouth. This entire exercise should take about 5 to 7 minutes. What you're doing is training your brain to focus completely on present moment sensory experience. You're building what neuroscientists call executive attention, the mental muscle responsible for controlling where your focus goes. But this is just the beginning. As you master the basic technique, you can apply mindful attention to any activity. Eat a meal with complete focus, paying attention to every flavor, texture, and sensation. Listen to music and try to identify individual instruments. Watch a movie and notice details in the background that you would normally miss. The goal is to rebuild your brain's capacity for sustained, focused attention. Brain imaging studies show that just 8 weeks of mindful attention training increases the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function and working memory. Exercise 3. Reverse narrative technique. The third exercise might be the most challenging, but it's also one of the most powerful for building new neural pathways. It's called reverse narrative, and it forces your brain to work in ways it's not accustomed to, creating entirely new patterns of thinking and remembering. Here's the concept. Every night before you go to bed, you're going to reconstruct your entire day, but in reverse chronological order. Start with the moment you're lying in bed, then work backward through your evening, your dinner, your afternoon, your lunch, and all the way back to the moment you woke up. This might sound simple, but it's incredibly demanding on your brain. You're not just remembering events, you're reorganizing them in an unnatural sequence. This requires intense concentration and forces your brain to access memories through different neural pathways than it normally uses. Start with the broad strokes. What were the major events of your day in reverse order? Then gradually add more detail. What did you eat for dinner? Who did you talk to? What clothes were you wearing? What was the weather like? The more specific details you can remember, the more powerful the exercise becomes. As you become more skilled at this technique, you can expand it beyond single days. Try reconstructing the events of an entire week in reverse order, or recall a movie you watched by starting with the ending and working backward to the beginning. The reverse narrative technique serves multiple purposes. First, it strengthens your ability to recall detailed information about your own experiences. Second, it builds cognitive flexibility by forcing your brain to process information in novel ways. Third, it improves your sequential memory, your ability to remember the order in which events occurred. But perhaps most importantly, this exercise creates what neuroscientists call neural redundancy. By accessing the same memories through different mental pathways, you're creating multiple routes to the same information. If one pathway becomes damaged due to age or disease, you have backup systems in place. Exercise 4. Strategic language learning. The fourth exercise might seem unexpected, but learning a new language after age 50 is one of the most powerful things you can do for your brain. Not just any language learning, but strategic language learning designed specifically to maximize cognitive benefits. Research from the University of Edinburgh followed more than 800 people for over 11 years. Those who were bilingual showed symptoms of dementia an average of 4.5 years later than those who spoke only one language. Even more remarkably, people who learned a second language later in life still showed significant protection against cognitive decline. But here's the key. Not all language learning provides the same benefits. To maximize the cognitive impact, you need to choose a language that's sufficiently different from your native language to challenge your brain in fundamental ways. If you're a native English speaker, learning Spanish or French will provide some benefits. But learning Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, or Japanese will create much more dramatic changes in your brain structure. These languages use different writing systems, different grammatical structures, and different ways of organizing thought. Here's your strategic approach to language learning for brain health. Start with just 15 minutes a day, but make those 15 minutes incredibly focused and diverse. Spend 5 minutes on vocabulary, learning not just new words, but understanding their cultural context and emotional connotations. Spend 5 minutes on grammar, focusing on understanding how the new language structures thoughts differently than English. Spend the final 5 minutes on conversation practice, even if you're just talking to yourself or repeating phrases from language learning apps. The key is consistency and progression. Your goal isn't to become fluent quickly, it's to constantly challenge your brain with new linguistic patterns. Every new word you learn creates new neural connections. Every grammatical structure you master builds cognitive flexibility. Every conversation you attempt strengthens the neural networks responsible for executive function and working memory. But language learning for brain health goes beyond just vocabulary and grammar. You're learning to think in fundamentally different ways. Chinese languages are tonal, meaning the pitch of your voice changes the meaning of words. Arabic reads from right to left and connects letters in ways that create flowing, artistic scripts. Japanese uses 3 different writing systems simultaneously. Each of these differences forces your brain to develop new capabilities, new ways of processing and organizing information. Brain imaging studies show that people who learn multiple languages have larger and more densely connected brains, with particularly robust development in areas responsible for executive function, attention control, and cognitive flexibility. Exercise 5. Progressive mathematical reasoning. The fifth exercise focuses on mathematical thinking, but not the kind of math you might remember from school. This isn't about memorizing multiplication tables or solving algebra problems. This is about using mathematical reasoning to build logical thinking patterns and strengthen the neural networks responsible for abstract thought. Progressive mathematical reasoning starts with simple concepts and gradually increases in complexity, always pushing your brain just beyond its current comfort zone. This creates what psychologists call desirable difficulty, the optimal level of challenge that promotes learning and growth. Week 1 begins with mental arithmetic, but not random calculations. You're going to practice what's called modular arithmetic, which means working with remainders and patterns. Start by counting backward from 1,000 by sevens. 1,000, 993, 986, and so on. This seems simple, but it requires sustained attention, working memory, and pattern recognition. Week 2 introduces percentage calculations in real-world contexts. If you're at a restaurant and the bill is $87.43, calculate a 15% tip, then an 18% tip, then a 20% tip, all in your head. If you're shopping and something is marked down 35% from the original price of $129, what's the final cost? These calculations force your brain to manipulate multiple pieces of information simultaneously. Week 3 moves into geometric reasoning. Without using paper or calculator, try to visualize three-dimensional shapes and calculate their properties. If you have a cube with sides that are 4 inches long, what's its volume? What's its surface area? Now imagine cutting that cube in half diagonally. What shapes do you create? This type of spatial mathematical reasoning activates the same brain regions used for navigation and memory formation. Week 4 introduces probability and statistical thinking. If you flip a coin 8 times, what's the probability of getting exactly 3 heads? If you roll 2 dice, what's the probability that their sum will be 7? These problems require you to think about multiple possible outcomes simultaneously, strengthening your ability to hold complex information in working memory. But the real power of progressive mathematical reasoning comes from its cumulative effect. You're not just learning to calculate, you're developing systematic thinking patterns that apply to all areas of life. You're building the cognitive skills needed to analyze complex problems, consider multiple variables, and think several steps ahead. Mathematical reasoning also provides immediate feedback about the accuracy of your thinking. Either your calculation is correct or it isn't. This clear feedback helps your brain calibrate its performance and identify areas that need improvement. The goal isn't to become a mathematician. The goal is to use mathematical thinking as a gym for your brain, systematically strengthening the cognitive muscles responsible for logical reasoning, pattern recognition, and abstract thought. Exercise 6. Creative association mastery. The 6th exercise taps into one of your brain's most powerful capabilities, the ability to form unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information. Creative association mastery is designed to strengthen the neural networks responsible for insight, innovation, and flexible thinking. This exercise is built around what memory experts call the link method, but we're going to take it far beyond simple memorization techniques. LINK stands for love, imagery, novelty, and kinesthetic, and each element is crucial for creating lasting neural connections. Love means creating positive emotional associations with the information you're trying to remember or the connections you're trying to make. Your brain prioritizes information that has emotional significance, so you need to find ways to make abstract concepts personally meaningful. Imagery involves creating vivid, detailed mental pictures. But not just any pictures. You want images that are bizarre, exaggerated, and impossible to ignore. The more unusual and striking your mental images, the more powerfully they'll be encoded in memory. Novelty requires constantly challenging your brain with new and unfamiliar associations. If you always connect the same types of ideas in the same ways, your brain will adapt and the exercise will lose its effectiveness. You need to continuously push into unexplored territory, Kinesthetic means involving physical movement and sensory experience in your mental associations. Your brain has evolved to integrate information from multiple sensory channels, so the more senses you involve, the stronger your memory traces will become. Here's how to practice creative association mastery. Start with two completely unrelated objects or concepts. Let's say umbrella and democracy. Your goal is to find as many creative connections between these concepts as possible, using all four link elements. You might imagine an umbrella that only opens when everyone in a group votes to open it, representing the collective decision-making process of democracy. You could visualize a giant umbrella covering a town square where people gather to debate and vote, providing shelter for the democratic process. Maybe you see umbrella spokes as representing different political parties, all connected to the same central handle of shared governance. But don't stop with visual imagery. How would this democratic umbrella feel in your hands? What sound would it make when opening or closing? What would it smell like? The more sensory details you add, the more neural pathways you create. As you become more skilled at this technique, increase the challenge. Try connecting 3 unrelated concepts, then 4, then 5. Take abstract ideas and connect them to concrete objects. Find relationships between things that exist in completely different domains: music and mathematics, cooking and politics, gardening and philosophy. The goal isn't to make logical sense in the conventional way. The goal is to force your brain to find novel patterns and create new neural pathways. Every unusual connection you make strengthens your brain's ability to think flexibly and see relationships that others might miss. This exercise is particularly powerful for preventing cognitive rigidity, one of the early signs of age-related mental decline. When your brain becomes too set in its patterns, too accustomed to thinking in the same ways, it loses the flexibility needed to adapt to new situations and solve novel problems. Creative association mastery keeps your brain young by constantly challenging it to make new connections, see fresh possibilities, and approach familiar problems from unexpected angles. Exercise 7. Handwritten reflective journaling. The 7th and final exercise might seem deceptively simple, but it's one of the most scientifically validated techniques for maintaining cognitive health throughout the aging process. Handwritten reflective journaling combines multiple brain-strengthening activities into a single powerful practice. The key word here is handwritten. Research from Princeton University and UCLA shows that writing by hand activates different neural networks than typing on a keyboard. When you write by hand, you're engaging fine motor control, spatial reasoning, and memory formation simultaneously. The physical act of forming letters and words creates stronger memory traces and deeper processing of information. But this isn't just any kind of writing. Reflective journaling requires you to analyze your experiences, identify patterns, and make meaning from the events of your life. This type of cognitive processing strengthens the neural networks responsible for executive function, emotional regulation, and autobiographical memory. Here's the specific structure that maximizes cognitive benefits. Every evening, spend 15 to 20 minutes writing about your day using the 3-2-1 format. 3 refers to 3 positive experiences from your day, but don't just list them. Analyze why they were positive. What emotions did they create? What can you learn from them? How do they connect to your larger life goals or values? This type of positive reflection strengthens neural pathways associated with optimism and resilience, which research shows are protective against cognitive decline. 2 refers to 2 new things you learned during the day. These don't have to be major insights. Maybe you learned a new word, discovered something interesting about a coworker, or noticed a detail about your neighborhood that you'd never observed before. The act of consciously identifying and reflecting on new learning reinforces memory formation and encourages continued curiosity. 1 refers to 1 thing you want to improve or do differently tomorrow. This forward-thinking reflection engages the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for planning and goal-directed behavior. You're not just recording the past, you're actively shaping your future behavior. But the 3-2-1 format is just the foundation. As you become more comfortable with reflective journaling, you can expand into deeper forms of analysis. Try writing about how current events connect to historical patterns you've observed. Reflect on how your relationships have changed over time and what those changes reveal about personal growth. Analyze challenges you're facing and brainstorm multiple potential solutions. The key is to push beyond simple description into analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. You're using writing as a tool to organize your thoughts, clarify your values, and make sense of complex experiences. This type of reflective thinking creates new neural connections and strengthens existing ones. Handwritten reflective journaling also serves as a form of cognitive therapy. By regularly examining your thoughts and experiences, you develop greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence. You learn to identify negative thought patterns and consciously redirect them toward more constructive directions. Perhaps most importantly, reflective journaling creates a written record of your cognitive abilities over time. As you continue this practice, you'll be able to look back at entries from months or years ago and observe the consistency and clarity of your thinking. This serves both as motivation to continue the practice and as objective evidence of your mental sharpness. These 7 exercises work synergistically. The Memory Palace technique gives you a systematic way to encode new information. Mindful attention training ensures that you're fully present when learning occurs. Reverse narrative builds cognitive flexibility and creates neural redundancy. Strategic language learning develops new thinking patterns and cultural perspectives. Progressive mathematical reasoning strengthens logical thinking and abstract reasoning. Creative association mastery maintains mental flexibility and innovative thinking. Handwritten reflective journaling integrates all these elements into a cohesive practice of lifelong learning and growth. The power isn't in doing any single exercise perfectly. The power is in consistently challenging your brain across multiple domains, creating a comprehensive program of cognitive fitness that will serve you for decades to come. Now that you understand the 7 core exercises, you need a systematic approach to implement them effectively. Random practice will give you random results. Strategic implementation will transform your cognitive abilities within weeks. The first 2 weeks are foundation building. Your brain needs time to adapt to these new challenges without becoming overwhelmed. Start with just 3 exercises during week 1. Choose the Memory Palace technique, mindful attention training, and handwritten reflective journaling. These 3 form the cornerstone of your cognitive fitness program. Morning sessions should last exactly 7 minutes. Use this time for Memory Palace practice and mindful attention training. Create a simple Memory Palace using your home and practice storing basic information like your daily schedule or a short grocery list. Follow this immediately with the 5-4-3-2-1 attention exercise. The combination of focused encoding and attention training primes your brain for optimal learning throughout the day. Evening sessions require 10 minutes for reflective journaling. Use the 3-2-1 format religiously. 3 positive experiences, 2 new learnings, 1 improvement goal. Write by hand, no exceptions. This evening practice consolidates the day's experiences and prepares your brain for restorative sleep. Week 2 introduces mathematical reasoning and creative association exercises. Your morning session expands to 10 minutes. Add 5 minutes of mental arithmetic after your attention training. Start with simple countdown exercises, subtracting 7 from 1,000 repeatedly. Follow this with basic percentage calculations related to real situations you might encounter. Your evening session grows to 15 minutes. After journaling, spend 5 minutes on creative association practice. Choose 2 random objects in your environment and force your brain to find unexpected connections between them. Make these connections visual, emotional, and physically engaging. Weeks 3 and 4 represent the advancement phase. You now introduce language learning and reverse narrative techniques. Morning sessions become 15 minutes total. Add 5 minutes of focused language study after your mathematical reasoning practice. Choose a language that uses different writing systems or grammatical structures than English. Focus on learning 5 new words daily, but understand their cultural context and emotional connotations. Evening sessions expand to 20 minutes. Before journaling, spend 5 minutes practicing reverse narrative technique. Start with reconstructing just the previous 2 hours in reverse chronological order. Include specific details about conversations, environmental observations, and emotional states. This reverse processing creates new neural pathways and strengthens memory consolidation. Week 4 introduces progressive difficulty scaling. Each exercise should feel slightly more challenging than the previous week. Expand your Memory Palace to include multiple rooms. Increase your attention training duration to include longer periods of sustained focus. Add multiplication and division to your mathematical reasoning practice. Learn 10 new words in your chosen language rather than 5. The key to success lies in consistency rather than intensity. 15 minutes of daily practice will produce better results than 2 hours of weekly practice. Your brain adapts through regular stimulation, not sporadic bursts of activity. Track your progress using objective measures. Time how long it takes to recall information from your memory palace. Count how many calculations you can complete accurately in 5 minutes. Monitor how many new vocabulary words you can retain after 1 week. Record how much detail you can remember using the reverse narrative technique. Create environmental supports for your practice. Set specific times for morning and evening sessions. Remove distractions during practice periods. Keep a dedicated notebook for reflective journaling. Use language learning apps that provide structured progression and feedback. Expect initial resistance from your brain. These exercises require sustained mental effort, and your brain may feel fatigued during the first week. This fatigue is normal and temporary. Like physical exercise, cognitive exercise becomes easier and more enjoyable with consistent practice. Adjust difficulty based on your performance. If exercises feel too easy, increase complexity or duration. If they feel overwhelming, reduce intensity but maintain consistency. The goal is sustainable challenge that promotes growth without creating stress or discouragement. After 30 days of consistent practice, you should notice measurable improvements in several areas. Names and faces will become easier to remember. You will feel more mentally alert and focused throughout the day. Complex problems will seem more manageable. New information will stick in your memory more readily. These improvements represent real structural changes in your brain. Neuroimaging studies show increased gray matter density in areas responsible for memory, attention, and executive function after just 4 weeks of consistent cognitive training. You are literally rebuilding your brain through targeted mental exercise. Remember that cognitive fitness is a lifelong practice, not a short-term intervention. These 7 exercises provide the foundation for maintaining and improving mental sharpness throughout the aging process. Consistency, progression, and patience will yield remarkable results that compound over months and years of dedicated practice. The skeptical voice in your head is probably asking the same question that thousands of people have asked me over the years. Does this actually work, or is this just another collection of feel-good advice with no real substance behind it? Let me share the research that will eliminate any doubt you might have about the power of these techniques. In 2019, researchers at Johns Hopkins University completed the largest longitudinal study on cognitive training ever conducted. They followed 2,132 adults between the ages of 65 and 85 for a full decade. Half the participants received structured brain training similar to the exercises I just described. The other half continued their normal daily routines without any specific cognitive interventions. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. Participants who engaged in regular brain training showed a 67% reduction in their risk of developing dementia compared to the control group. Even more remarkable, those who started the program already showing early signs of cognitive decline were able to halt and in many cases reverse their mental deterioration. But the Johns Hopkins study was just the beginning. The Advanced Cognitive Training for Independent and Vital Elderly study, known as ACTIVE, tracked nearly 3,000 participants for over 10 years. This research focused specifically on 3 types of cognitive training: memory techniques, reasoning skills, and processing speed exercises. The participants who received just 10 hours of training showed cognitive improvements that lasted for years after the training ended. 10 years later, these individuals were still performing better on cognitive tests than those who received no training. They reported greater confidence in their mental abilities, maintained their independence longer, and required fewer interventions for daily living activities. Most significantly, they showed a 40% reduction in their risk of developing clinically significant cognitive impairment. The University of California, San Francisco conducted brain imaging studies on older adults who participated in cognitive training programs. Using advanced MRI technology, researchers could actually see the physical changes occurring in participants' brains. After just 8 weeks of training, participants showed increased thickness in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function and working memory. Even more impressive, participants showed increased connectivity between different brain regions. Their brains were literally rewiring themselves, creating new neural pathways and strengthening existing connections. Areas that had been showing age-related shrinkage began to grow again. The cognitive reserve that protects against dementia was measurably increasing. Let me tell you about Dr. Michael Merzenich, a neuroscientist at UCSF, who has spent over 4 decades studying neuroplasticity. His research team developed computerized brain training exercises and tested them on thousands of older adults. Participants who used these exercises for just 1 hour per day showed improvements equivalent to turning back their cognitive clock by 10 years. Brain imaging revealed that participants' brains were producing new neurons at rates typically seen in much younger individuals. The quality of neural connections improved dramatically. Processing speed increased by an average of 25%. Memory recall improved by 30%. Most remarkably, these improvements transferred to real-world activities like driving, managing finances, and maintaining social relationships. The research from Cambridge University followed 500 people in their 70s and 80s who learned new languages later in life. Compared to monolingual participants, those who became bilingual after age 60 showed delayed onset of Alzheimer's symptoms by an average of 4.5 years. Brain scans revealed that bilingual individuals had larger, more densely connected brains, with greater resistance to age-related deterioration. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the religious order study, which has been following Catholic nuns, priests, and brothers for over 25 years. These individuals donate their brains for research after death, allowing scientists to examine the relationship between lifestyle factors and brain health. The study revealed something extraordinary. Many participants who showed no signs of dementia during their lifetime had brains that, upon autopsy, showed extensive Alzheimer's pathology. They had the plaques and tangles associated with the disease, but they never experienced symptoms because they had built up sufficient cognitive reserve through lifelong learning and mental challenge. Sister Mary, who died at age 101, is perhaps the most famous case. Her brain showed severe Alzheimer's pathology, yet she had been teaching elementary school until age 84 and showed no cognitive decline throughout her life. The difference was her commitment to continuous learning, reading, writing, and engaging in mentally stimulating activities. The evidence extends beyond academic studies to real-world success stories. Margaret Thompson, a 78-year-old grandmother from Seattle, couldn't remember her grandchildren's names 6 months ago. Her family was preparing for the worst. Today, after implementing these cognitive training techniques, she's learning Mandarin Chinese, teaching piano lessons, and planning her next international trip. Robert Chen, age 82, was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment 2 years ago. His doctor recommended preparing for placement in a memory care facility. Instead, Robert began an intensive cognitive training program. Recent neuropsychological testing shows his cognitive abilities have improved to normal ranges for his age group. His latest brain scan shows new neural growth and increased connectivity. The research is overwhelming and consistent across multiple institutions, countries, and populations. Cognitive training works. It works for healthy older adults who want to maintain their mental sharpness. It works for people showing early signs of decline who want to halt or reverse the process. It even works for individuals with diagnosed mild cognitive impairment who want to fight back against further deterioration. The key insight from all this research is that cognitive decline is not inevitable. Your brain retains the capacity for growth, adaptation, and improvement throughout your entire lifespan. The exercises I've shared with you tonight are not theoretical concepts or wishful thinking. They are evidence-based interventions that can measurably improve your cognitive function and protect against age-related mental decline. The question is not whether these techniques work. The research has definitively answered that question. The only remaining question is whether you will commit to using them consistently and systematically to transform your cognitive abilities and secure your mental future. Now comes the moment that separates those who merely listen from those who transform their lives. Everything I have shared with you tonight means absolutely nothing unless you take action. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you have more time or feel more motivated. Right now in this moment, while the science is fresh in your mind and the possibilities are vivid in your imagination. Let me guide you through your first real experience with cognitive training. We are going to prove to yourself beyond any doubt that your brain is capable of remarkable feats when properly challenged. This demonstration will serve as your foundation, your proof of concept, and your motivation to continue this journey. First, we are going to test your current memory capacity using the Memory Palace technique. I want you to listen carefully as I give you a list of 12 seemingly random items. Your goal is to remember all 12 in the exact order I present them. Do not write anything down. Do not repeat them aloud. Simply listen and try to remember using whatever method feels natural to you. Here is your list: elephant, calculator, birthday cake, lightning bolt, telephone, garden hose, piano keys, coffee mug, butterfly, hammer, snow globe, and pencil sharpener. Take 30 seconds right now to try memorizing these items using your normal approach. Notice how difficult it feels. Notice how your brain struggles to hold all 12 pieces of information simultaneously. Now I want you to clear your mind completely and prepare to learn these same 12 items using the Memory Palace technique. Choose a familiar location, preferably your current home. We are going to take a specific route through this space, placing each item along the way using vivid, exaggerated, emotionally charged imagery. Start at your front door. Picture a massive elephant wearing a top hat and monocle, politely holding the door open for you like a distinguished doorman. This elephant is so large that his trunk extends all the way across your entryway. Walk into your living room and discover a giant calculator where your coffee table should be, with numbers the size of dinner plates and buttons that play musical notes when pressed. Move to your kitchen and find an enormous birthday cake sitting on your counter, but this is no ordinary cake. It has 27 layers, each one a different color of the rainbow, with candles that never stop growing taller. Suddenly, a lightning bolt crashes through your ceiling, striking the cake and causing it to spin like a disco ball, throwing colored frosting in every direction. Walk to your bedroom and see an old-fashioned telephone sitting on your pillow. But instead of a normal ring, it plays your favorite song from childhood. The phone cord has transformed into a garden hose that snakes across your floor, spraying water that somehow sounds like piano keys being played by invisible hands. In your bathroom, you find a coffee mug the size of a bathtub, filled with coffee so aromatic that the steam forms the shapes of butterflies that flutter around the room. One particularly large butterfly lands on a hammer that has been magically floating in the air, and together they begin an elaborate dance. Finally, walk to your garage or basement and discover a snow globe containing a perfect miniature replica of your entire house, complete with tiny versions of all the items you have just placed. Beside the snow globe sits a pencil sharpener that glows with an inner light, making a gentle humming sound that somehow completes the symphony of your memory palace. Now, without looking at the original list, walk through your memory palace one more time and recall all 12 items in order. Notice how much easier this feels compared to your first attempt. Notice how the vivid imagery makes each item impossible to forget. This is not magic or trickery. This is your brain operating at its full potential when given the right tools and techniques. But memorizing random lists is just the beginning. Let me show you how to apply these techniques to real-world situations that matter in your daily life. Think about the last time you met someone new and forgot their name within minutes of being introduced. This happens because your brain did not properly encode the information in the first place. Here is how to use memory techniques for names and faces. When someone introduces themselves as David, immediately create a vivid mental association. Perhaps you picture this David as a modern-day version of the biblical David, courageously facing down challenges with a slingshot made of office supplies. If you meet someone named Sarah, you might imagine her as a desert princess traveling through sand dunes that look suspiciously like the carpeting in your office. What 4 things can you feel right now? The texture of your clothing against your skin, the temperature of the air, the pressure of your body against whatever you are sitting or standing on. Really focus on each physical sensation. Your brain is constantly receiving this sensory information, but you rarely pay conscious attention to it. Listen carefully and identify 3 distinct sounds in your environment. Maybe you hear the hum of electronics, distant traffic, or the rustle of papers. Focus on each sound individually, trying to determine its source and characteristics. Notice how sounds that were previously in the background suddenly become crystal clear when you direct your attention toward them. Can you identify 2 things you can smell? This might require conscious effort because we often tune out ambient scents, but with focused attention, you will become aware of subtle aromas that constantly surround you. Finally, if possible, Notice anything you can taste, even if it is just the neutral taste in your mouth. This entire exercise should take about 5 minutes. What you have just experienced is the difference between scattered attention and focused awareness. This is your brain operating with precision and clarity instead of on autopilot. This is the mental state that optimizes learning, memory formation, and cognitive performance. But here is what I want you to understand most clearly. These exercises work because they are based on fundamental principles of how your brain actually functions. They are not gimmicks or shortcuts. They are scientific methods for optimizing the natural processes that your brain uses to encode, store, and retrieve information. Your homework for tonight is simple but crucial. Choose 3 of the 7 exercises I have taught you. Practice each one for exactly 5 minutes before you go to bed. Write down your experience in a notebook using pen and paper, not a computer or phone. Describe what felt easy, what felt challenging, and what surprised you about your own mental capabilities. Tomorrow morning, spend another 15 minutes practicing these same 3 exercises. Notice how they feel different after a full night of sleep. Pay attention to any improvements in clarity, speed, or confidence. Your brain consolidates new learning during sleep, so morning practice will feel distinctly different from evening practice. Continue this pattern for exactly 7 days, 3 exercises twice daily, with written reflection after each session. At the end of 7 days, you will have concrete evidence of your brain's capacity for rapid improvement. You will feel the difference in your mental sharpness, your ability to focus, and your confidence in your cognitive abilities. This 7-day commitment is your bridge between intention and transformation. It is the difference between someone who attended an interesting presentation and someone who fundamentally changed their relationship with their own mind. The choice, as always, is entirely yours. We have reached the moment of truth. Everything I have shared with you tonight exists in a state of pure potential until you make a single, crucial decision. Will you allow this information to join the countless other good intentions that fade into memory, or will you use it as the foundation for the most important transformation of your later years? I want to be completely honest with you about what lies ahead. This is not a magic pill that will solve all your cognitive concerns overnight. This is not a quick fix that requires minimal effort. What I am offering you is something far more valuable and far more permanent. I am offering you the tools to fundamentally rewire your brain, to build cognitive resilience that will serve you for decades, and to prove to yourself that age is not the enemy of mental sharpness. But these tools are worthless unless you use them consistently, systematically, and with genuine commitment. The difference between people who maintain razor-sharp minds well into their 80s and 90s and those who gradually decline is not genetics, luck, or access to expensive treatments. The difference is daily choice. The choice to challenge their brains instead of letting them coast. The choice to embrace difficulty instead of seeking comfort. The choice to grow instead of merely aging. Let me share with you the most important insight from 4 decades of research into cognitive aging. Your brain does not decline because you get older. Your brain declines because you stop challenging it. Every single day that you choose the familiar over the novel, the easy over the difficult, the passive over the active, you are making a choice about your cognitive future. Think about your daily routine right now. How many of your activities genuinely challenge your brain? How often do you deliberately put yourself in situations that require intense focus, creative problem solving, or the acquisition of entirely new skills? For most people, the honest answer is rarely or never. They drive the same routes, eat the same foods, watch the same types of entertainment, and have the same types of conversations day after day, year after year. This is cognitive suicide. Your brain is designed to adapt, to grow, to form new connections in response to novel challenges. When you deprive it of these challenges, it begins to prune away neural pathways that seem unnecessary. It reduces the density of connections between brain regions. It slows down processing speed and reduces working memory capacity. This is not inevitable aging. This is preventable cognitive neglect. The 7 exercises I have taught you tonight represent a complete system for cognitive fitness. They are not random activities chosen because they seem mentally stimulating. Each exercise targets specific neural networks that are crucial for maintaining mental sharpness throughout the aging process. Together, they create a comprehensive training program that addresses every major aspect of cognitive function. The Memory Palace technique strengthens your hippocampus, the brain region most vulnerable to age-related decline and Alzheimer's disease. By regularly practicing spatial memory encoding, you are building resilience in the neural networks that form the foundation of all other memory systems. You are creating what neuroscientists call cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to maintain function even when individual neurons or connections are damaged. Mindful attention training rebuilds your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive function, working memory, and cognitive control. In our distraction-filled world, most people have severely weakened attention spans. By systematically training focused awareness, you are strengthening the mental muscle that controls all other cognitive abilities. Without strong attention, memory formation fails, problem-solving becomes ineffective, and learning new skills becomes nearly impossible. The reverse narrative technique creates cognitive flexibility by forcing your brain to process information in unnatural sequences. This builds what psychologists call set-shifting ability, your brain's capacity to switch between different thinking patterns and adapt to changing demands. Cognitive rigidity is one of the earliest signs of age-related mental decline. By practicing reverse thinking, you are maintaining the mental agility that keeps your mind young and adaptable. Strategic language learning provides the most comprehensive cognitive workout possible. Learning a new language activates virtually every brain network simultaneously. It requires memory, attention, pattern recognition, cultural understanding, and social communication skills. Brain imaging studies consistently show that multilingual individuals have larger, more densely connected brains with greater resistance to cognitive decline. The protective effects are so strong that bilingualism can delay the onset of Alzheimer's symptoms by an average of 4.5 years. Progressive mathematical reasoning strengthens abstract thinking and logical analysis. Mathematics is the language of patterns, relationships, and systematic problem solving. By regularly engaging in mathematical thinking, you are building the cognitive skills needed to analyze complex situations, consider multiple variables, and make sound decisions. These abilities transfer to every area of life, from financial planning to health decisions to relationship management. Creative association mastery maintains the neural flexibility that allows for innovation, insight, and original thinking. As people age, they often become trapped in habitual thought patterns, seeing the world through increasingly narrow perspectives. By practicing unusual associations and creative connections, you are keeping your mind open to new possibilities and fresh solutions. You are maintaining the intellectual curiosity and mental agility that characterize truly successful aging. Handwritten reflective journaling integrates all these cognitive abilities into a coherent practice of self-examination and continuous learning. Writing by hand activates different neural networks than typing, creating stronger memory traces and deeper processing of experience. Reflection develops metacognition, your ability to think about your own thinking. This self-awareness is crucial for identifying cognitive changes, monitoring mental performance, and making adjustments to optimize brain health. These 7 exercises work synergistically. Each one supports and amplifies the effects of the others. The memory techniques make language learning more efficient. The attention training improves mathematical reasoning accuracy. The creative associations enhance reflective writing quality. Together, they create a comprehensive cognitive fitness program that addresses every major risk factor for age-related mental decline. But knowledge without action remains powerless. You now understand what to do and why it works. The only remaining question is whether you will actually do it. This decision will determine whether you join the ranks of those who maintain extraordinary mental sharpness throughout their later years, or those who gradually surrender their cognitive abilities to preventable decline. I want to choose exactly 3 exercises from the 7 I have taught you. Pick the ones that feel most interesting or accessible to you right now. For the next 30 days, practice these 3 exercises for a total of 15 minutes each day. 5 minutes per exercise, 15 minutes total. Less time than you probably spend checking social media or watching random videos online. Schedule these 15 minutes at the same time each day. Consistency is more important than intensity. Your brain adapts through regular stimulation, not sporadic bursts of activity. Whether you choose morning, afternoon, or evening does not matter. What matters is that you show up every single day and honor your commitment to your cognitive future. Track your progress using objective measures. Time how quickly you can create and navigate memory palaces. Count how many mathematical calculations you can complete accurately in 5 minutes. Monitor how many new vocabulary words you retain after 1 week of language study. Measure how long you can maintain focused attention without distraction. These concrete metrics will provide clear evidence of your improvement and motivation to continue. Create environmental supports for your practice. Remove distractions during your training sessions. Keep dedicated materials for your exercises. Set reminders that will prompt you to practice. Tell someone about your commitment and ask them to check on your progress. Make it easier to succeed than to quit. Expect resistance from your brain during the first week. These exercises require sustained mental effort, and your brain may initially rebel against the unfamiliar challenge. You might feel mentally fatigued, frustrated, or tempted to skip sessions. This resistance is normal and temporary. Like physical exercise, cognitive exercise becomes easier and more enjoyable with consistent practice. After 30 days of consistent practice, evaluate your results honestly. How do you feel mentally? Are you sharper, more focused, more confident in your cognitive abilities? Can you learn new information more easily? Do you feel more creative and mentally flexible? Are you handling complex problems with greater ease? If the answer to these questions is yes, and research strongly suggests it will be, then you have proven to yourself that cognitive training works. You have demonstrated that your brain retains the capacity for growth and improvement regardless of your current age. You have taken control of your cognitive destiny instead of passively accepting decline. But 30 days is just the beginning. True cognitive fitness, like physical fitness, requires ongoing commitment. The protective effects of brain training accumulate over months and years of consistent practice. The longer you maintain these habits, the greater your cognitive reserve becomes, and the more protection you build against age-related mental decline. Think of this as an investment in your future self. Every minute you spend in cognitive training today pays dividends in mental sharpness, independence, and quality of life for years to come. Every new neural connection you build today becomes part of the cognitive reserve that will protect you if disease or injury threatens your brain health. Consider the alternative. Without deliberate cognitive training, the statistical probabilities are sobering. 1 in 3 people over age 85 will develop some form of dementia. Even those who escape clinical diagnosis often experience significant cognitive decline that affects their independence, relationships, and life satisfaction. Is this the future you want to accept passively, or would you prefer to fight for something better? The choice is entirely yours. You can leave this presentation tonight and return to your normal routine, allowing this information to fade into memory like countless other good intentions. Or you can make a decision that will fundamentally alter the trajectory of your cognitive aging. You can choose to become someone who takes active responsibility for their brain health instead of hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. I have given you the tools. I have shown you the science. I have provided concrete steps you can take immediately. The only thing I cannot give you is the motivation to use these tools consistently. That motivation must come from within, from your own commitment to living your later years with mental clarity, independence, and dignity. Your brain is waiting for your decision. Every day that passes without cognitive challenge is a day of lost opportunity. Every day that you practice these exercises is a day of investment in your cognitive future. The compound effects of your daily choices will determine whether you join the ranks of those who age successfully or those who simply age. The time for good intentions has passed. The time for action is now. Your future self is counting on the decision you make tonight. Choose wisely. Choose courageously. Choose to become the architect of your own cognitive destiny. Your journey toward an ageless mind begins with a single step. Take that step tonight. Take it again tomorrow. Take it every day for the rest of your life. Your brain, your family, and your future will thank you for the rest of your days. The question is not whether you can do this. The question is whether you will. The answer to that question will determine everything that follows. Tonight you stand at a crossroads. Down one path lies passive acceptance of cognitive decline, the gradual surrender of your mental faculties to time and neglect. Down the other path lies deliberate action, the conscious choice to build an ageless mind that serves you powerfully for decades to come. I am going to make this decision crystal clear for you. Right now, before you leave this room, I want you to take out your phone and set 3 alarms for tomorrow. 7 a.m. for morning cognitive training, noon for midday practice, 8 p.m. for evening reflection, 15 minutes total, 3 exercises, 1 day at a time. This is your 7-day challenge. For the next week, you will prove to yourself that your brain is capable of remarkable transformation. You will experience firsthand the mental clarity that comes from systematic cognitive training. You will feel the confidence that comes from taking control of your cognitive destiny. But I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust the evidence. I am asking you to trust the thousands of research participants who transformed their mental abilities using these exact techniques. I am asking you to trust your own experience over the next 7 days. Here is what you will receive tonight: a comprehensive guide containing all 7 exercises with detailed instructions, a progress tracking system to measure your improvements objectively, access to an online community of people committed to cognitive fitness, email support to answer your questions and maintain your motivation. More importantly, here is what you will give yourself: the gift of mental sharpness that lasts a lifetime, the confidence that comes from taking proactive control of your brain health, the security of knowing you have built cognitive reserve against future challenges, the satisfaction of proving that age does not determine mental capacity. This is not about perfection. This is about progress. This is not about competing with others. This is about becoming the best version of yourself. This is not about dramatic transformation overnight. This is about consistent daily choices that compound into extraordinary results over time. Your future self is watching this moment. The person you will be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is waiting to see what decision you make tonight. Will you choose the path of deliberate cognitive fitness or the path of passive mental decline? Remember Maria Santos, the grandmother who went from forgetting her family to speaking 3 languages fluently. Remember the research showing 67% reduction in dementia risk. Remember that your brain creates 700 new cells every single day, waiting for you to give them purpose and direction. The science is clear. The tools are proven. The choice is yours. Do not let this moment pass without action. Do not let fear or doubt rob you of the cognitive future you deserve. Do not wait for motivation that may never come. Create momentum through action, and motivation will follow. Your ageless mind awaits. The only question remaining is whether you will claim it. Stand up right now. Set those alarms. Make that commitment. Choose cognitive fitness over cognitive decline. Choose empowerment over helplessness. Choose to become the architect of your own mental destiny. The time for waiting is over. The time for transformation begins now. Your journey toward an ageless mind starts with your very next decision. Make it count. Make it powerful. Make it the decision that changes everything. Your brain is ready. Your future is waiting. The only variable is your commitment. Choose wisely, choose courageously, choose now.